So it's this idea like when it's a green light, we know we go. There's no resistance, we go. Everyone's going, we go with the flow. There's this part where we know a red light, everyone stops. And I think most people honor the red light because there literally is inherent danger, right? If you don't stop at a red light, there's cross traffic, collisions, you die, not a good sign. If we run a red light, it usually is not by choice. We missed it for some reason. But the yellow light, there's a type of personality where it can kind of go one of two ways. There are people who see a yellow light and that means stop. But there are others who see yellow lights and it means go faster. Welcome back to the Hard But Worth It podcast. We're glad that you joined us today. If you like what you're seeing, we ask you to like it and to also share it, tell someone about it, and spread the love, help us grow our audience. And right now we're talking about goals, and this is kind of the season. I think in our previous episode, we were talking about hooks and the reason those are necessary and how to evaluate setting a good hook and the process of that. Today, we're going to talk about how goals, good goals, can feel a little uncomfortable. In fact, one of the indicators that I might argue about with someone is that the better the goal, the more uncomfortable or personal it might feel. And it is because it's deeply personal. In fact, the more we are attached intrinsically to a desired goal, I think the more vulnerable we might feel because we're putting it out from a deep place for the world to now see it. And if we've done the work to make it specific and measurable, then we have this reality that it can be judged, right? We know if we did it, we know if we didn't do it. And because of that, we can feel attached to it because it feels very personal. One of the things that I like that you say is that, you know, when we're doing this type of work, we have to remember that we're human beings, not human doings, which means we can fail at doing you, but you can never fail at being you. And right. I like that. But unfortunately, we can get pulled into it sometimes in doing deeply personal goal work because it pushes out there to be judged. In fact, we would say we have to learn how to be judgy without being personally judgy. And so there's this weird way of how do we do that work to get a goal out there, but not personally judge ourselves and yet have a accountability mechanism around it. So talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah, we call this, in our goal setting methodology, or how we teach it, we call this non-judgmental evaluation. We have to evaluate ourselves, but we want to do it in a non-judgmental way. But I want to start by pointing out that there is a situation many of us have found ourselves in where we're being judged and evaluated at the same time. And it's often when someone has set a goal for us, right? Where somebody else says, I need you to get this done. I don't particularly care if you want to or not, but it's your job to go get it done, and then I'll pay you. And then we just show up for the paycheck, and there's a transaction involved there of I'll do what you need done so that I can get what I want, so that I can take that money and go do what I want in the world. And that's what a lot of people just call work. But work is far different than that. It's far deeper than that, especially in today's world. Yeah. But that's the world of external motivators. And that's the world most of us lived most of our life in. That's most of our experience with goals is in that framework. When setting goals or doing this goal work from intrinsic motivation, we still have to hold on to evaluation. We still need feedback. But we don't want to do it like you say, we're dealing with something that's personal. And so we've got to be careful that we aren't judging ourselves in the process. So what do we mean by that? I think one of the things that we talked about the hook and in a previous episode, and the idea you have to measure goals. We want to be concrete and specific. We want to be measurable and verifiable. And so like if your goal is to lose weight, the measuring stick's the scale, right? And we know that it's somewhat self-evident. And so we're like, okay, great. Say you want to lose 30 pounds over 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And so what we hope we can do is go step on that scale in 6 months, one time, and it's below 30 pounds and we're good, right?
Yeah, not so much.
It doesn't work. whatever. Some programs want you to weigh yourself once a day. Sometimes it's once a week, but it's constantly, because we need that feedback to get so that we can learn, so that we can do micro adjustments to see if what we're doing is heading us in the right direction. But a lot of times it's, am I doing good? Then I'm good. Am I doing bad? Then I'm bad. And I don't want that kind of feedback. It's kind of too intense. So what we do is we set up a system where we're still going to evaluate, but we're asking the questions differently. So you set a goal, you get a measuring stick, you can say as measured by, and then maybe it's every 2 weeks, maybe it's once a month. You return to your goal and you evaluate it. How am I doing? How are we doing if it's a team goal? And you give yourself, we use a traffic light system. We'll say you just give yourself a green light, a yellow light, or a red light. And even then, people are like, right, because green is good and red is bad.
Well, of course.
Right. That's how I'm actually part of
I mean, you get a ticket if you run a red light.
Red light,
right?
yeah. You don't get a ticket if you run a green light. But I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistaken understanding of what a traffic light system is, although it's often used that way. I'm part of a group that uses it precisely that way. Red is bad. You want to get out of the red. But if you think about the metaphor of a traffic light, there's nothing bad about a red light. It's part of an entire system that makes the whole thing work. So if you're sitting in a red light, that's not bad.
Right.
You're currently making way for other things. And so in this system, we say, okay, you give yourself red light, yellow light, or green light, but you don't go to good or bad yet. And then we have definition for this. Green light means I'm moving forward without any resistance. There's nothing in the way. I'm just full steam ahead. Yellow light is I'm moving forward, but there is some resistance. Like I'm getting some headwinds. There's some pushback. It's not all going great, but we are making progress. Red light is, I'm not moving forward at all. Nothing but resistance, right? I'm stuck. So you answer that question according to that definition. Then the next question is, what are we learning? So you do the evaluation, green light, yellow light, red light, and then you immediately follow up with, and what are we learning? And that changes the whole scenario. Because if you've got a red light and you're learning, that's helpful. If you've got a green light and you're learning, that's helpful. So we're still all good. And the other thing about this is when doing goal work, green and getting all greens across all your goals isn't necessarily helpful. It could be that you just, like the question, what are we learning? Like say I have 3 goals, and every time I show up to our goal meeting and I'm like, I am crushing this. I am awesome. Right. I'm all green lights. Oh, Mitch, I'm sorry. You've got yellows and reds, right? But one of the things that we would want to ask is, are your goals too realistic? We like to have aggressive but realistic goals.
Yeah.
Are you sandbagging? Did you set conservative goals because you're scared of the stretch? Could you be doing so much more? So green lights can be wasting time, wasting energy, wasting resources, could be not helpful. And red lights, on the other hand, could be completely good as well, or helpful as well. Like we were talking earlier about sometimes we have these ideas that we want to get done in the world. We want to accomplish something, and we have an idea of how we're going to get it done. And let's say you and I have been sitting around talking about this great idea for like 3 years. Like, we should start a podcast.
Right.
And maybe for 3 years, we just talked and talked and talked and talked. And all we did was talk about it. And every time we talked about how we're going to change the world, it's like, we should start a podcast. And then one day we're like, you know what, we should set a goal and we should actually start a podcast. And so we start a podcast. And 6 months into it, we're like, this just isn't working. Like, this is a complete waste of time, or the subject matter we're covering is just a disaster. And so that red light is really good feedback that your idea that you thought was going to just be amazing might not have been.
Right.
And by getting that feedback, what you're able to do is release the idea. You fire the idea. And you go, and that makes room for something to come in that actually might work.
Yeah. And the red light, too, isn't always 100% you're not showing up. But if you break it into like the fitness world, you may set a goal that says, I want to get stronger by X in the next 6 months. And so you're intensifying your workouts by adding more weight, maybe focusing on more strength training than you are cardio or fitness training or endurance training. And you're going to fail. You're going to come to a point of failure sooner as you begin that journey, hitting a level of red. But that red may be that you're learning, you're progressing forward.
Yeah.
You may not be at your ultimate goal yet, but the red is still an indicator that you're making progress. You're just not there yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you are learning things because you're shifting.
You're moving. Yeah.
Correct.
It sometimes people will set a goal and it's too aggressive is another way this works. And fitness would be a great one. Like right now I'm working on flexibility.
Yeah.
And what I really, if I'm being honest, what I want is I want to like stretch hardcore for 30 minutes a day and just do like 6 months of stretching in 3 weeks.
You want to be the guy on TikTok that's stretching and all those yoga poses in the stretchy pants.
And I want to do that in 2 months.
That's right.
I want to be that guy in 2 months. And I'm just getting nothing but resistance. Like I can't hit, I can't do that. And what you're being told in that red light is going, you actually need to retimeline your goal.
Sure.
You're too aggressive here and you're going to hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. So red lights are, if you're learning from them, are helpful. So I like to say, you do the evaluation and then right after the evaluation, you ask the question, what are we learning? And learning is good, not learning is unhelpful.
Right. So explain to me how someone might still choose in the red light situation to learn, and then what might not learning look like? Because there are moments of decision there, like especially, let's go right back to the scale. I mean, if you step on the scale and it's not coming down at the level that you hoped, or let's say it's even the opposite, it's going up rather than coming down, the tendency is to say, well, I failed at that, and we give up because it feels personal. We feel like a failure. Culture, society, maybe family norms, the shaming that might go on around why we eat, how we eat, and all those types of things start to play into that. But how do you learn when you're in a spot like that and it does indicate you maybe failed?
It's not working, right?
Like, it's not working because I know the last holiday weekend I was off program and I ate whatever I wanted to eat and didn't count and log anything.
That's oddly specific, Mitch.
Right. Yeah. So when you step on the scale, you're up, but you know why you're up.
Yeah.
What do you learn from that?
Yeah. I think of failure as coming in a gradient. And when we're doing goals naturally, I think, lead to development of strategies. When you have a goal, you start looking for a strategy. And strategies are kind of like the big how. How am I going to accomplish this? Right. And then we tend to break that down into tactics. It's just a different word to talk about something. We break it down into these. And those are the small hows. And then those turn into activities. And those activities produce results, right? And so sometimes what you have to do when you're failing is go, okay, at what level has it failed?
Sure.
Was my activity off and I just need to make adjustments there? Because failing at the level of activity is pretty easy to adjust. But if that's not right and you need to fail and you need to go, my tactic is off, then fire your tactics.
Yeah, that's really good.
If you got to fire your strategy, that's often more complex, a little harder. That might mean going and hiring a professional to help to give you a new strategy. You may not know the strategy that'll work for you. The strategy for weight loss for me at 53 is very different than 23.
Right. Yeah.
And if I haven't stayed current with like, what do I need today? I need to go get some help from somebody. So figuring out at what level you're at in the failure is really important. But when people fail when they fail and then they give up, what they're doing is they're failing to the level of goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes life happens in a way where you're like, you know what, I really planned on losing weight in the next 6 months, but it turns out that this big event happened and I lost my available resource to pay attention to that, and I have to let that go.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's appropriate. But yeah, when you have a scale failure in the course of a week or a month on a 6-month goal, you don't want to fail at the level of goal.
Well, I like that. I like that question is, where am I failing? Is kind of the next thing. Okay, I failed. It's a red light, but then where? It's a learning question. Where did I fail?
Yeah.
And you're right. If it's just a matter of I was on a holiday weekend and I chose to go off program and wasn't logging and ate whatever, well, that's an easy thing to adjust.
Activity level problem.
Hey, I'm right back on program come Monday. Yep. We're going to get dialed back in.
And basically what you've done is you've said either I got to work a little harder over the next 3 months, or it's not a 6-month goal anymore. It's a 6-month and 1 week goal. Who cares? It's not a big deal.
Exactly.
We had a situation recently with a client where they got some pretty big red lights, and they didn't understand this principle. We taught it to them, but this is the kind of thing that you have to experience to really let it sink in. The work of not actually judging yourself is pretty hard sometimes, and you have to have that. Well, you have to have the experience of it. So they had that. They set a goal, And they have a spreadsheet and a whole system around that manages a whole process for them. It's a big part of their company. And they really thought they needed to get that onto some kind of software. And so they went out and they spent 6 months researching different softwares because the goal was to move from this to a software. And they just researched it and they learned. They spent a lot of time. And at the end of 6 months, when they were supposed to decide what software to start doing the implementation, what they had learned was they're not ready to make that move. Their solution that they've custom built for themselves is better than any software they could find at the level they could afford. Now, I'm sure if they went out and spent $250,000, blah, blah, blah. But they were like, it just was red lighted the whole time. And then in the end, they decided to not do it. And then they came back and they're like, what does that mean? And I was like, that is awesome. Because for a while, you've been thinking you needed to do this work, that you had a bad system and you had to upgrade your system and you were budgeting money to upgrade your system. What you learned is the guy who built that, pretty darn smart and built something pretty cool. And what if, this is how I spun it, what if that's a business opportunity?
Right.
What if you could actually put some development funds behind that and turn this into a piece of software that you could start selling?
Sure.
What if we just found a new business unit? They're like, I never thought about it that way. And then he said, well, did we fail at goals for the year? I'm like, no, you didn't fail at goals. You're 6 months in, write a new goal.
Right.
Write another 6-month goal to finish the year out and take these learnings and go after it again. But they were just going to stop. In fact, I think they did. I think this was a year-end review. And that person had just stopped. They're like, I failed at goals. Goals don't work. I was like, no.
Yeah. Well, and it's learning with a coach to become good at it.
Yeah.
When you first start, everyone will tell you, you don't start off a pro at setting goals. You're going to fumble through them. It might take you 3 months, 6 months, even a year before you really get the handle of knowing how you show up with the goals to right size the goal for you. And they're all individual. Your goal to lose weight is going to look different than my goal to lose weight. If that's a goal, we're not going to write the same goal because we're different people, different time, different money, resources that we're going to be able to put into that. So I think there's permission for us to step in and learn that process.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the red light, green light, and that idea of like when you're driving in a car, it's kind of like you're driving toward a goal, right?
It's you probably are going somewhere.
You're going somewhere on purpose, usually, right? Yeah. And so there's a sense of there's two types of people, at least when I was driving and my children were in the car. Because it's funny how your children are backseat drivers. They tell you all the things you're doing wrong. And so it's this idea like when it's a green light, we know we go. There's no resistance, we go. Everyone's going, we go with the flow. There's this part where we know a red light, everyone stops. And I think most people honor the red light because there literally is inherent danger. Right? If you don't stop at a red light, there's cross traffic, collisions, you die, not a good sign. If we run a red light, it usually is not by choice. We missed it for some reason. But the yellow light, there's a type of personality where it can kind of go one of two ways. There are people who see a yellow light and that means stop. But there are others who see yellow lights and it means go faster.
That's right.
Right? And I wonder if there's a level of understanding if we set right goals, yes, there's green, but even the yellow is an indicator that I'm moving in the right direction. I'm not always going to have a resistance-free journey heading to the right destination. I'm going to have yellow lights, but that's not an indication to stop. It's an indication to maybe hit the gas, go through it, because you are moving forward. It's an indicator that you're actually moving in the right direction. Would you kind of agree with that?
I would. There are some, we say this all the time, that the process of mastery, personal mastery, or any sort of business mastery is the process of making something look easy. You watch a master operate and you're just like,
yeah.
We literally say they make that look so easy because we know it's not. And then we step into the arena and we try it and we just fall flat on our face, right? The journey of mastery is the journey of going from massive resistance and then learning and building resiliency and strength to be able to do the things. And then really it's about automating the process, the actions, the behaviors into the part of our system where we actually, it's not choices anymore. The amount of things that we do that are highly complex that we do without thinking about them is extraordinary. Driving is a great example of this. I changed offices. Well, this happened a few years ago in particular. And I found myself still driving downtown, but I would drive to the wrong office.
Right.
I would take the wrong exits. I'm like, what's happening? It's because I don't think when I'm driving, right? You automate those systems. But if you drop me into China, where none of the signs make sense, the rules are just off a bit, like I still know how to make the car go, but I cannot drive with automatic behaviors. I'm lost. And it's exhausting to do that. Over time, that would change. That's what resistance is.
Yeah.
And what resistance is doing is reminding you that, well, sometimes what resistance is doing is reminding you that you're in a new environment, you're not a master at it, you haven't done it before, and you actually need to pay attention. Put effort into this. But over time, that will reduce
right.
until you're green lighting everything. At which point, it's probably time to stretch again.
Upgrade your goal.
Yeah. There's a way in which resistance can also be telling you you are going the wrong way. So learning the difference between those two is really important. But a lot of the resistance that we feel when doing this kind of goal work, when we're going after something we actually want, it's actually really helpful feedback to let us know we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think this is an important conversation to be having right now as people are either really finalizing their goals or just starting to activate on them. Because one of the things that gets really difficult about writing truly powerful intrinsically motivated goals is we know we're going to get evaluated. And so we tend to write either conservative goals, or we write safe goals, or we don't write goals. This is one of the places that people get stuck. And knowing that you are going to evaluate it, but you're going to learn from the evaluation. That's the only question that matters. What's happening and are we learning? Can free us up to actually go, oh, cool. I actually want that kind of feedback. And then I think, write more powerful goals.